Hello, everybody. James here, and with me today is Baby Doll, the Perfect 10. I told you I could never say it without doing it in Dusty's voice. I didn't even think about that then. How you doing?
I'm well, doing very well, thank you.
Ah, dear me. I'm glad you didn't ask how I was, because you know how I am. I've been boring people to death with my knee all day, let me tell you. So, how come you're in West Virginia then? Just meet and greets, and what's going on?
This is the very final match for West Virginia for the Rock and Roll Express. And with Gary Dameron with ASW, I'm going to walk down to the ring with them. I'm doing a meet and greet right before the matches and doing the wrestling thing like I normally do. It's
Yeah.
part of my heritage. It's what I grew up doing. Everybody says that they've been in the business all their life. Literally, I've been in wrestling all my life.
Well, for quite a few years. I mean, you sort of leave the NWA in 1988, around that time, I think.
Mhm.
And then when did you sort of start doing the conventions and coming back out, as it were, again?
In '88, I started like doing clothing and stuff because I had stopped with Crockett, was married to Sam, um, had my daughters in '91 and '92. Just was out of wrestling, went to back to Texas. I guess it was 2006. I did two. I did one in 2002 in Tampa for Sal Corrente, and then it was a big reunion show in Tampa, and then I did one in 2006 at the Capitol Center of NWA Legends, and it was something like, I really like this. I really like working. My daughters were older, so we were living in Joplin, Missouri at the time, and packed up and moved to North Carolina in 2006, 2007, something like that, and just been working ever since. It's like my comeback has been 10 times longer than my regular career.
Do you know, I actually had Jimmy Valiant in that seat not too long ago, and he said the same thing. It's like, hey, my mainstream career was far shorter than my indie career now, and
Right.
you just sort of just stay in and just love it.
Oh, I
Without
see Jimmy all the time, like on weekends and stuff. He always likes to get booked.
you know,
Just super, super guy.
he's a good boy as well. He's a good boy, Jimmy. And I
Yes.
can't help but notice the National Wrestling Alliance t-shirt top you've got
Yeah.
going on as well.
Repping. My daughter works for them. My daughter is their women's division is fire. And with my daughter Samantha Starr, she's worked with them almost a year now. So I've got to represent my girl.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We are now going to go through your career. I'm going to be sort of picking and choosing some of the best questions that I've written and fans have written in. And we can't sort of start without starting at the beginning of your wrestling career, and we're going to go to WCCW. Now, the story goes is that you were trained to be an EMT. There was an advertisement or something like that where you heard that WCCW Dallas was looking for a valet, and
Mhm.
then you, was it an audition, essentially? Almost like an acting job?
No, no, nothing at all like that. I actually heard my daughters, my parents talking in like the other room, and they were looking for a girl for Gino to work as his bodyguard, because back then the girls and the guys didn't. There was no intergender. There was no, like, if we had a mixed tag and the girl tagged out, then the other girl would have to tag. There was no touching between the boys and the girls. So Gino couldn't go after Stella May, so he needed to get a female to counteract what Stella was doing. So wow, I could do that. So I took my dad's book and I went to a boyfriend's house, and I called the Dallas office just out of the blue, just hang. And David Manning answered the phone. And I was like, "Hey, David, this is Nicola, and heard my parents talking, and you guys were looking for a girl for Gina. What about me? I'm smart and I'm pretty, and maybe I could work out." Well, smart, I had no idea that smart didn't mean what they meant. So he said that they were getting ready to do meeting with Fritz upstairs, and he would give him the idea, and that he says, "I love it, but let's just see what Fritz says." So about 45 minutes to an hour later, David called me back and said that Fritz absolutely loved the idea, that he wants you to start with it because you've got the look, you can do it. And I got the job right then.
Mm. With the really anticipating that you, like, when you turned up there, they looked at you and went, she looks like she can really kick some ass, and not just the ladies, the men.
Right. Well, I'm like almost 6 foot tall. I used to go to the gym all the time with Von Erichs. I helped my dad promote. I helped chase down vendors and made them pay and the whole thing. And had a reputation of being like not beating people up, but I'm tough. I mean, I'm from West Texas. I can pull cows. I can herd. I can rope. I can do whatever. And they knew that. Plus, I'm just a big athletic girl, and getting with the makeup and the whole thing. I mean, I can look like I can kick your ass, and I can kick your ass.
How was hanging around with Gino then? Because I mean, obviously he passed away many years ago. He's sort of someone of many stories that surround Gino. But how was he just day to day traveling? I'm presuming you travel with him. But how was it?
I took one trip with him.
Oh, really?
I did one trip, and it was to Abilene, and we took the red Corvette, and he actually left early, and I had to ride back with the referee. So there was no road trips. There was no. I actually did more road trips with Jake Roberts and that was a gift because I could talk with him. I learned so much about the business from him. I learned how to be a heel from him.
Mm.
So my road trips with Jake were priceless. I mean, just the amount of knowledge that I was able to get from him and learning how to work and slow down and like look at the crowd and get them to look at you. And it was really a gift to work with Jake. And Gino, on the other hand, I swear, I mean, I thought I knew Gino, but until I saw the Dark Side of the Ring episode, I mean, I didn't know he was married and had daughters, and that his mom was like a big fan of wrestling, and the whole thing. It was like a brand new book opened up. So
what?
It was Gino was a man of many faces.
Well, what was the face that you saw while you were with him during that time?
Perfectionist. Someone that wanted to be the best, wanted to be the best heel on the card, wanted to look the best, be the best, have the best car, the best looking girlfriend, just the absolute best.
Flair, basically.
Yes.
Did he ever? I mean, he probably never did, or it'd be a long time ago to remember this. But did he ever talk about Ric Flair and saying, "I want to emulate this," or he would say that Flair was his hero, or what?
Oh no, he talked about himself. He never talked about anybody else. It was always about Gino.
This is someone's written in North of Nashira. Now, these are all usernames. Would Gino Hernandez have gone to work in New York if he hadn't passed away?
Gino had gone up and done a couple of shots for New York back in like the really early 80s. And I don't think it was for him because I think he only worked like 3 or 4 shows and then headed right back to Texas. Same thing with Florida. He had dates in Georgia and Florida and worked and had done very, very well, had gotten over amazing and just left. It was he just didn't want to leave Texas.
Yeah. Forgive me if I'm shuffling around in my seat a bit. I'm leaving this in the show as well. Forgive me if I'm shuffling around in my seat. I'm just trying to get my knee comfy. I'm glad you mentioned Jake. We'll mention Jake in a minute. Now, this is a bit of a macabre question to ask. I swear it's one of only a couple.
It's fine.
What did you hear when Gino passed away? What did you hear as far as the reasons for that happening? Because there's been a couple of different stories floating around in the years.
I had heard a massive cocaine overdose. I'd also heard that someone had murdered him because of his ties with the mob and like the underworld type thing, and that he had owed some money for gambling, and that every once in a while they make a example of people and say, well, we can take care of him, we can take care of you type thing. With the amount of cocaine that was in the autopsy, there was no way someone could ingest that amount of cocaine unless you're just eating it by the spoonfuls, which no one does that. The one thing that was kind of weird on the Dark Side of the Ring episode, and Jeannie and Lady Blossom and I had talked about this, was Gino hated cigarette smoke. Just absolutely could not stand it. You couldn't even bring a pack of cigarettes into his house, and that yet there was a pack of cigarettes in his apartment there on the table. That was one of the things that we both were like, that was wrong because Gino would have never allowed that in his apartment. So there's just so many questions. I would like to think that he's somewhere on a beach drinking a Mai Tai with a pretty girl and that he escaped all of this. But I think that some very bad people made an example out of him
Yeah,
and that they had had enough.
that is yeah. That was definitely an interesting take on that. I said that we were going to talk about Jake again, but this sort of coincides with the next question as well. Who are your mentors or inspirations as far as patterning your managerial career?
Oh, Sunshine. The Sunshine was like one of the very first. She had the face, she could sell the match. My dad always was so enthralled with her that, if you could tell what was going on with the match just by looking at her. And that was one of the things that, how he talked about her and how her selling the match through her face um, put her over with him. So that's what I tried to emulate was you could watch me and tell what was going on with the match just by looking and seeing what I was doing.
You mentioned beforehand that you said that you used to work out with the Von Erichs, and in fact, there's a question from a fan again, James B. Any stories about your time in WCCW, the Von Erichs, and being Andrea, the female giant?
I used to beat him at racquetball. Whenever we would go work out, I loved to play racquetball. And to this day, even Kevin told my daughters, was just like, your mom was such a good athlete. We never could beat her at racquetball. And so I think I was undefeated against them playing racquetball. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Who the Von Erichs were you closest to at the time? Because when you got in, had David already passed away at this point?
I had known the Von Erichs for, gosh, 3 or 4 years because they had worked with my dad's promotion up there in Lubbock, and we'd driven him around and the whole thing. It'd be a tie between Carrie and Kevin. Carrie actually showed me how to throw discus, where I broke my school record just by like tweaking my finger instead of just throwing it. Like twisting your hand. He showed me how to do that, and I actually was able to break the school record. And then Kevin, because Kevin always liked to go to the gym and work out, and a tie between Kevin and Carrie.
We know they're all naughty boys here, but who partied better or partied the hardest, the Von Erichs or the Freebirds?
Oh, Freebirds.
Oh, really?
Without a doubt.
I've heard the opposite. I've heard the Von Erichs partied more.
Well, whenever I would have to go pick up the Freebirds at the airport, I would have to be on time at the gate and get them to the car. Because if I was late, they would be in the bar with a pile of money in the middle of the table. And I couldn't leave until all the money had been spent. So it's just like you had to go pick them up.
Was that one of several duties you had, just picking up the Freebirds, or did you do, picking up at airports for other people as well?
I did everything for my dad's promotion, everything from concessions, selling programs, selling tickets, setting up chairs, setting up the ring. If I was there at like 1 o'clock to start selling tickets for that day, if the guys called at like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock from the airport to get a ride to the building, then of course I'd want to take a break and go run to the airport and pick someone up. So it was whatever my dad needed to have done. That's what I did.
Absolutely. Can you tell me about your interactions with Fritz? Because Fritz is another one of the more complicated figures in wrestling history. But what were your opinions and face-to-face time with Fritz?
He loved his boys to the point that he would do anything for them. I mean, a lot of people were saying like, oh, he was really rough on them. He was hard on them. He had 5 boys that I've got one boy. I can imagine having like 4 at the time. He wanted everything for them. And with the bodies that they had, with the physiques that they had, with working out, the natural athleticism, he just wanted nothing but the best for his boys.
How was, obviously this is your first job in wrestling, but how were the payoffs, did you think, at the time? Because, I mean, this was in the heyday of Dallas, wasn't it?
It was good. I mean, I made, considering that I wasn't taking bumps, it was like a brand new kind of category for girls. I made good money. I mean, I'm sure that it could have been more, and I could have gone in there and had some meetings to see if I could get more, but then they could also get someone else that would do it for less.
Mm.
So, I mean, I was just happy to be there. You know what I'm saying? And then to get, good payoffs on top of that, and then being on TV and traveling and because going to San Antonio and Laredo and El Paso and Corpus Christi and Houston and Austin, the whole thing. I mean, I love to go down to Corpus Christi because I could buy shrimp right off the boat and come home and have shrimp. So it was always an adventure.
Off the top of your head, how many miles did you do a week?
Oh, in Dallas?
Yeah.
Between 700 and 1,000 easy.
Was this in the times where you were flying still, or was it all driving?
90% driving. I mean, we had Southwest, but if you flew, then that meant you had to stay over and then fly out the next day. So a lot of times it was just better just to get in the car and go. The only time I really flew was whenever I went to Lubbock to go see my folks, and I would fly out there because I could fly out and fly right back, and it was more time with family.
I'll ask you one more from Dallas, and then we're going to get into a little game. But tell us why the stint in Dallas was so short. So were you like headhunted by Jim Crockett Promotions, or how did that all come about?
Okay, they were looking for the girl for Gino because they had Stella May, and at the time, Sunshine had gone off to rehab. She'd had some addiction problems, so that during her hiatus, they were trying to keep the storyline going, so it'd be fresh in the people's mind. So we had I started the Sunday before Labor Day in September, and then I worked till Christmas. So whenever we did the Cotton Bowl show, where Sunshine came out of they flew her in on the helicopter, and she made the appearance, and she looked like $1,000,000. I mean, she was so pretty, and so you could tell like rehab had done the job. So once Sunshine came back, well, then there was no use for Stella and I because Sunshine was a star. So that's why it was so short. Was I was just kind of a fill-in until Sunshine got better from rehab. Whenever she came back, then I had 2 days for World Class in Tampa and Miami on Christmas Day and the day after. And that's whenever I saw Tully and Dusty at the dressing rooms. And they were actually looking for a girl for Tully. They had a contest going for several months where you could send in like your cards and letters and pictures and VHS tapes to audition to be Tully's perfect 10. And then whenever Dusty saw me in Florida, it was just like, she's it. She's exactly what we want.
I think this was at the time when the Christmas and the Thanksgiving events were the biggest of the year as well, weren't they?
Reunion Arena was amazing on Thanksgiving. It was we had the match with Stella May, and then what was bad was we followed Terry Gordy and Killer Khan, and with that match, both of them bled just amazing. It was awful. It was so awful. Where when you walked on the ring, it actually squished in places. There was so much blood on the ring.
Have you? Did anyone ever try and talk you into doing it?
No. No, I'm too pretty.
Absolutely.
No, it wasn't necessary. I got so much heat the way it was. I mean, that why, if you don't have to, why? And to this day, I will say that in 1985 and 86, I had more heat than any female ever in professional wrestling. People were out to kill me. They were going to knife me, the whole thing and it was, Dusty was such a genius with it, and with Tully, was that they didn't have to do all the crazy stuff. I was able to get heat on my own without having to do ridiculous stuff.
Yeah. In fact, more crazy stories might actually come up in our name association game. So I'm going to give you a sentence, a description, and I'd like for you to tell me the first name in the wrestling business that pops into your head that best describes that person. And if there's a little story that goes with it, please feel free to throw it in. And the first one is, as always, the funniest person in the locker room.
Funniest person in the dressing room. Bobby Heenan was hilarious. It was hard not to. He was cracking one-liners all the time, and it was the Bobby Heenan story I've got is I was in Tampa getting my bag at the carousel, and someone comes up behind me and says, "Linda, the car is waiting. We got to go." And so I was like, and my name's not Linda, and I didn't know who it was. So I'm like waiting for my bag, and then on the inside of my arm, I get the tap again. Hey, we got to go. And he said the car's waiting, and I look, and it's Bobby Heenan. He says, "Oh, you're not Linda." He thought I was Hulk Hogan's wife.
Oh, really?
I'm like, "Oh, I'm good. I'm getting my bag. We're good." No, Bobby Heenan was hilarious. So I would say Bobby Heenan was the funniest.
Yeah, and a fine choice to say as well. The last man or woman standing at the bar.
Well, have to put him over. It'd have to be Flair, unless some girl got his attention and he went off to the room, but he'd always come back. So it had to be Flair. It's hard to say that Flair did not shut down any bar that Flair went into. He shut it down.
The biggest bully.
Boy, I'm not sure because every time someone was a bully, they kind of need the person um, who got it, who probably needed it. Um, Boy,
You can always plead the fifth on that. That's not a problem.
I'm not sure because I can't think of anyone that was like overly like bad.
No.
I mean, you're with boys all the time, so yeah, there's bully and they're playing and they're picking, but I don't think that anyone got bullied that didn't deserve it.
Mm-hmm. Smelliest wrestler.
Ooh. Abdullah the Butcher, his blood stank. It was awful.
Blood stank.
Not personally, not his person didn't stink, but his blood was awful. I mean, it had just this weird smell to it.
I've asked that question about 70 times now. I've never had Abby that his blood smell. What did it smell of?
Blood's got a smell to it. Like when you smell blood, you know what blood is. Well, we worked with Abdullah for about a month and a half, and he would like run past us to get to the dressing room. So Tali and I'd be going through the crowd by ourselves, and then when you broke through like the dressing room doors, there would just be like a trail of blood, and you could smell it. It had a weird smell.
We sort of alluded to this before, but I have to ask you now: the most dangerous situation you ever found yourself in? Could be with the fans, could be in the ring, could be outside.
Several of them. I think the worst one was the Great American Bash in Charlotte when Dusty won me for the 30 days, and they had to get me from the ring back to the dressing room. Manny Fernandez actually stopped a guy that was coming at me with a knife, had the knife like in his hand, was running towards me, and Manny like tackled him and got the knife away. I would say like the Great American Bash coming back from the ring after that, they were going to kill me. Also, whenever I put Flair's foot on the rope in Charlotte that Sunday afternoon, I had the tuxedo on with a purple bow tie, and I switched. I turned heel on Dusty, and whenever I put Flair's foot on the rope, you can actually hear like the crowd do this gasp. And when people say like white hot heat, that night I felt, because you actually felt the building just get hot, like all of a sudden like 20 degrees just. And if you look on my face, I am scared because I'm like, there's no way I'm making it back to the dressing room. Tully actually had to come down and help us get back.
I was actually going to ask, who was the sort of person in the back who'd like watch out for these situations and then help you to the back safely? Was it always Tully?
There was very few, and Tully had seen that it was going to. Tully wasn't supposed to come down there, but he helped Flair and I get back because they were crazy.
I've got a few more here to give you. So
Okay.
the nicest person in wrestling.
Me.
You can't say yourself. You can't say yourself. That's cheating. Come on.
No, I'm playing. I was like, um, the nicest person. Kind of a tie. I would say Jimmy Valiant and Ricky Morton's always been really good guy. And Magnum TA is good too.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, a three-way tie: Magnum, Ricky, and Jimmy.
I've never interviewed Magnum, but I can vouch for the other two as well. And Ricky's a great guy. Biggest pothead who loved the weed.
Me.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, it's me.
It sounds like you had to calm your nerves after some of those.
That's well, because I can't drink. I can't drink. I throw up and get sick. So that's never attractive to have a guy hold your hair back.
Mm.
And then just to relax. And I didn't like the whole bar scene because then in the morning, if you've got to get up at 5 o'clock to be in the shuttle at 5:30, and you've been drinking since 2:30, it's hard to look pretty. So it was drinking was not for me. So I like smoking pot, and to this day I still partake. But I'm trying to think of like Sam and I smoked a lot of weed. Trying to think of Jake. There's a lot of us.
Mm.
All the ones that are still alive were the potheads.
Yeah.
The ones that got into the pills and all the other stuff, that's where they seem to have the problems. Was that with the I don't think that people realize, like with muscle relaxers, like they're great and they help you relax. But what you don't understand is your heart, your lungs, and your brain are all part of your muscular systems. So it's not going to the muscle relaxers aren't going to concentrate on your back or your leg or your knee or whatever's hurting you. It's going to relax everything. So while it's relaxing your leg, it's also relaxing your heart and your lungs. And I think that's what did in a bunch of the guys, because they didn't realize how much it was affecting them.
Yeah, and a pill to take you down, then a pill to take you up.
Yep.
And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, not for me. And I've never done cocaine, which is really kind of weird out of all the stuff. I saw what it did to the guys and how much money went like out the window and nothing to show for it. So I was just like, I would like that way too much, and I didn't want to like waste a fortune.
I like that. I like the frugal reason for, especially
yeah.
in the 80s.
I would have been a great cokehead because I would have done more than anybody else. So I knew that was like not for me. I didn't want to destroy myself.
Yeah, in the 80s, it was at premium as well, wasn't it?
Yes.
Well, I'm trying to think which one I'm going to say. The most memorable thing you saw on Crockett's plane.
Most memorable thing?
Or a funny story from Crockett's plane.
All we did was we'd get on the plane and sleep. We'd eat and sleep. The guys would play cards. Cornette one time said that Sam and I were like making out on the plane, and that never happened. I actually had to call my ex-husband. It was just like, because I never remembered that happening. Like, because I was always very to myself. I kept, I wasn't like real flamboyant or anything. And even like when Sam and I were a couple, we weren't flagrantly all over each other, because that wouldn't have been cool. So, I mean, we just kind of got on the plane and we'd eat and sleep and get to our car. Now, the Crockett plane was very professional. Ronnie Garvin's plane, on the other hand, we were flying back from Raleigh. And Sam and Ronnie were up front, and then I was in the back. And we had just taken off, and Ronnie lost all electrical power. And it's dark. It's nighttime. So the plane's still going, and you have the instruments, but you have no lights. You have no lights on the outside of the plane, no lights on the inside of the plane, no radio. So we're all like, what do we do? And Rice says, oh, we'll get to Charlotte. He says, I'm just going to follow 85. And he says, when we get to the airport, I'll just land. Well, don't you need lights? He said, oh, no, whenever we get to the runway, I'll get to a certain altitude and the lights will pop on and we'll land. He said, but once we land, he says, you need to get in your car and go. And don't tell people what happened with this. And he said, we're We're just going to land. We're going to get in our car and go. And he says, if there's any paperwork to fill out, I'll worry about it. But right now, we're just going to get to Charlotte. So Sam has got a big collider and has got it on the instrument panel the whole trip. Try not to burn his fingers, and then so keep it level and the whole thing. We get to Charlotte, sure enough, we come in for a landing and get down pretty low, and the lights come up. We land, and that was it. So for 200 miles, we had no electrical power on that plane.
that could have been the most dangerous situation you found yourself in as well. So we got two good ones.
Yeah, I didn't want to die that day. That's for sure.
I'll give you a couple more, then we'll move on to the rest of the interview. Which one I'm going to go for? Best enhancement talent.
Best enhancement talent. Oh my gosh, there's so many of them. Back in the day, had to have been George South.
Yeah.
And even today, just the way he promotes himself, he's wrestled everybody. If he's on a card somewhere, everyone's begging to work against him. Absolutely, hands down, George South.
And a fine answer as well. And I think I'll probably give you one or two more. Biggest ribber.
I've heard Mr. Fuji will get you. Mr. Fuji was the one back in the day that you couldn't leave your bag out. You couldn't leave anything out. He would find a way to get you.
Well, I used to do a podcast with Don Morocco, so the amount of Fuji stories I've heard first, second hand sort of thing, many of them. The last one I'll end on, you may not have an answer though. Most memorable backstage fight?
Between Manny and Tully. They didn't like each other at all. And they were shooting, whenever they did promos, it was kind of like one of them had to stay out because they started taking it personal. I don't quite know what happened to start it all off, but yeah, Manny and Tully had some, not like physical, but it got that close to being physical.
Oh, really? So it never quite came to blows then?
Mm-hmm.
We will move on from. I've got another little game at the end if we have time, of course. But what am I going to ask you now? So, I mean, how can we not talk about JCP? You go in and you're straight in with Tully Blanchard. And everyone makes fun of my accent because everyone says Blanchard, but I say Blanchard. You were ringside for the Tully versus Magnum feud. Talk about, I mean, maybe just as a fan, talk about just getting the best, not that you were seated, but the best seat in the house for those matches.
It was the build up to the I Quit match was probably the best masterpiece ever put together in professional wrestling. Dusty just put all the pieces together, the vignettes, the interviews, the promos, the matches building up to it. The guys literally didn't like each other. Both of them wanted to be the bull of the woods. Both of them wanted to be the top tier with Crockett. The animosity between each other, when you see the vignettes or the promos where they're like fisticuffs and they're doing blows on each other, you can actually hear them like hitting each other as hard as they possibly can. The I Quit match was perfect because to this day I can say that Tully never said I quit. To be there and that 12 to 18 minute match, it was brutal, it was spectacular, and I'm so happy I got that chair over the top of the fence.
Did you ever have any creative input, or did anyone ask you, say, hey, maybe you could do this, to sort of spice up the feud even more, maybe a little comment to rile the other person up? No,
they pretty much told me what to do. The only thing I got to do was I got to pick out my clothes. That was all me.
Where did you get the clothes? I mean, were they bespoke made for you, or were they certain stores?
I used to love to go shopping, and so that was kind of like Charlotte traffic would be horrible, so I'd go shopping at South Park Mall. I was very fortunate to find a seamstress, Doris Edwards, that made a lot of my clothes, because it was not all the rings had stairs. So, if you're having to jump 4 foot up into the edge of a ring, you have to be graceful and athletic and not fall on your face. And you want to be pretty and flashy and the whole thing. So she helped me a lot with that.
Hmm.
I'd go buy the material and give her an idea of what I wanted, and she'd come up with it.
Going back on Tully, I've got a couple more notes here. But with Tully, who is probably 5'10", 5'11", around that thing, did he get a bit bothered that you were, especially in heels, taller than him?
He's like 6 foot and I'm 5'10",
Oh, really?
so
I always thought he was smaller.
legitimately, he's a little bit taller than I am. But if I wore heels, then I would, like if I had 2 or 3 inch heels on, and then if my hair's like really poofy, then yeah, it's all illusion
Yeah.
too. No, he's taller than I am.
With the 80s hair as well, definitely.
Oh yeah, that's it.
With Magnum and Tully, as you said before, I don't know if you were talking in a working sense or not, but do they legitimately, have like a friendly competition with each other to outdo each other, kind of thing?
Oh, they legitimately to this day. Well, I don't want to say to this day, but they didn't like each other, and then as time went on, Magnum ended up marrying Tully's ex-wife, and it was all kind of a big sordid affair there for a while.
Okay, I didn't know that. When was this?
Oh yeah, Courtney is Magnum's wife now. They have two children, Lucy and Tucker, and then Courtney had 4 children by Tully.
Okay, that's a bit of a tidbit. I had no idea. One more thing about Tully I've got to ask is who hit harder, Tully or Dusty?
Me, no. Tully, or who would
I
hit
believe it was you
harder?
as well. That's coming up later as well. But yeah,
Uh, I would say Tully. Dusty wasn't known for like he did the flip flop and fly, and stuff. So
no, but I mean they both
I
slapped
would.
you, I believe, at one point or another on
Oh,
screen.
Tully knocked the dog crap out of me. I mean, I had the post earrings, and the post of the earring actually stuck into the back of my head. He hit me so hard. Hey, it looked good. So I mean, it's something that you couldn't hold back on.
Hey, did
So
did you get your own back by any chance?
no.
Ah, fair enough
And there was a lot of animosity. He was probably pretty tired of my shit by the time after being with me for a year. He'd probably had enough.
We've got a couple more things about Tully and Dusty here from fans. Filmation77 says, not a question, but something that's bugged me. You split from Tully Blanchard after he slapped you and you went with Dusty, but a year later, you do a heel turn on Dusty to join the Four Horsemen, but at Flair's side instead of Tully's. Why was this?
Um, I don't know. I wasn't going to question it. I had just got married to Sam. I think that maybe they were wanting me to stay in Charlotte and do the run with Flair, because we really did look good together. And with Flair, even if it was just for a short amount of time, I think it would have added a lot to the belt and to make him a heel and to give him more to talk about. I really don't know. It wouldn't have made sense for me to go back with Tully, but then it made sense for me to go back and be part of the Four Horsemen.
A fine answer as well. J.W. Han, what angle did you like being involved in the most? What were your biggest differences in being a valet for Tully and then for Dusty? So maybe your presentation or how you walk to the ring or something like that.
I really like being a heel the best with Tully. I just am a natural heel. I like making people mad, like for no reason, just to play with their emotions and piss people off. Just ask my ex-husbands. Um, Being a baby face is really hard because you've got to be pretty all the time. You can't go out without your makeup. You've always got to be nice and sweet. Otherwise, they're like, "Oh, she's such a bitch. She thinks she is." You've got to be in baby face mode all the time, and for me it was difficult.
Yeah, so
I
definitely.
loved work. I loved working with Tully, and the not only working against Dusty. The worst part was that we lost every night. I think it was like 3 months in a row, and I was just like, Tully, can we win one match, just one match? Because it was hard getting beat all the time.
Mm,
And then his matches with Magnum were stellar.
yeah. I may ask about Magnum towards the end, but I want to ask this one more thing, Tully and Dusty. Tumbleweed has asked, what was in your gimmicked purse?
I didn't have the gimmick purse. That was Missy Hyatt.
I thought that as well. I don't remember you with the purse, but
I didn't carry purse.
naughty tumbleweed. You got that one
No,
wrong.
Missy Hyatt had the Gucci purse, and she had a brick inside of it.
She also asked who was the better on Tully or Dusty. I think we've established it was Tully that you preferred. So we will move on. And this is the question or series of questions that everybody wants to know. Great American Bash 1986 would see you team with Dusty and Magnum TA and the Road Warriors against the Midnight Express and their manager, Jim Cornette. Right. Now, it'll be no surprise to people on this channel that Jim Cornette is a favourite subject of the fans watching and me to ask questions of. Give us your general thoughts about being around and working with Corny.
Oh my gosh. Ultimate professional. Would take notes of the show so that when we were there the following month or the following 3 months, we wouldn't be redoing the same thing. Meticulous notes on angles, people, who was there, who wasn't there, the crowd, the money, the whole thing. Ultimate professional. Absolutely loves the business, has a mind for it like no other. His promos were brutal to be called, like names. And even though I know it was a baby face, but shopping in the baby moose department and questioning my femininity and things like that. It was rough. It was some of those promos like really hurt bad, but oh well, it made some money. Plus, then I think that the July of '86, working the angle with me, Cornette said that he made more money working against me than anyone else.
Yeah, I believe Ole Anderson was pretty upset with that Jim and you were making more money than probably he did in quite a lot of his main event matches back in the day.
Oh, well. Ole was not a big fan of Baby Doll. He never understood like how I could get the heat that I did. But I figured if I got heat with Ole Anderson, I've got heat.
You're in good company. Did Jim ever tell you what he was going to say before he said it?
No, and no one did. Because promos were like they gave you a certain amount of time. Like they could say, you've got 2-3 minutes, go out there and push, whatever towns or whatever angles we were doing. But otherwise, there was no scripts. There was no forethought. I mean, I'm sure that the guys had some idea of where they were going step by step and then would get there. But there was, Dusty was a hard, because Tully wasn't bad, because Tully was all focused on the match and didn't really talk too much about me. But Dusty, on the other hand, he would go off on some tangents, like all girls look the same if you turn them upside down. And I look clean and the whole thing. And I'm looking at my face during those promos and I'm like, I'm just waiting for something to come out this bad, because it's like, oh God, my mom's watching this.
We've got a few more questions on Cornette. Dylan Holt asks, nothing groundbreaking, but I really want her side in reaction to when Jim Crockett and the boys ribbed Cornette by having him arrested, and then he called you a rude name. But the time when Cornette was pretended to be arrested, Rib.
It's just part of being ribs and stuff. It's just I don't know. It's hard to hold grudges and be mad after all these years, but it was just part of being one of the boys. It was part of being in the dressing room.
Well, what happened to Jim? So what position was he put in?
I don't think he did anything that he would. I mean, to this day, it's a good story, so it wasn't anything bad.
Yeah. Okay. But it was just basically just people came in pretending to be police officers, that kind of thing.
Well, are you talking about Cornette or Arn Anderson? Because I remember them doing that to Arn, but I don't remember Cornette. That's why I'm kind of like stumbling.
Oh, okay.
Whenever Arn first got into the territory, he had his first like Charlotte show. He was like middle of the card. He hadn't really worked that much for Crockett. It was more than a tryout. This was his big do or die. So the deputies come in the dressing room, which was really unusual. and said that, is there a Marty Lundy in here? We're all like, who's Marty Lundy? And Arn's like lacing up his boots and he looks over his glasses and he says, yeah, that's me. And we're going. So they said, well, we need to talk to you. And they said, and so Arn was just like, what is this about? And they said something about, I believe, Pensacola and a girl that you were with in Pensacola. And he was like, oh, all right. Well, it turned out that they took him outside and you hear like the officers going through all these charges and the whole thing. Like the girl was underage, and Arn was going, no, no, no. She showed me her driver's license. We went out drinking. I know that there's no way. I think they were saying like she was 16 or 17 or something, but she was actually like 20 and did the whole thing. And so we're on the inside of the dressing room, but we can hear all this going on of the officers are going like, don't you know better than that? And she even looks young. And how could you be with a girl like that? And of course, Arn's like denying everything. Like, it wasn't me. It was all we did was we went and got beer and we came back. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. So then they actually put him in handcuffs. And then you hear this, Flair, I'm going to get you. Flair had set up the whole thing, had found out the name of the girl, the whole thing. The police department had the paperwork drawn up, the warrant, the whole thing, and got Arn right off the very bat.
Oh, so it was real police officers as well who were in on this?
Oh, yes. This was actual real police. The Charlotte Police Department was in on it.
Jeez. I know Arn's gone through a personal loss recently, so best wishes to Arn. But also, any other words about Arn Anderson? Because from everything I hear, I've not spoken to him myself, but just a stand-up dude.
Oh, amazing. Just to this day, like one of my really good friends, I look forward to seeing him whenever I do like gathering or WrestleCade or anything. I have to go over and say hi to Arn. Just super duper guy. My son-in-law, Dustin Bosworth, is actually helping train Brock there at Lodi School in Charlotte.
Mm. How's Brock coming along?
Good, very well.
Yeah,
doing real well.
Where do you think he's going to end up in one of the major companies if he does?
It's whatever he wants to do. He needs to get a little more size and just a little more time in the ring, and then it's all his, whatever he wants.
We'll go back to Cornette. I'm sorry, there's a lot of questions about Cornette. There's a lot of Cornette fans watching. Nigel asks, the hottest, and imagine angriest in this context, you have seen Jim Cornette get?
Oh my gosh. There's been several. Probably when we just about hung him, when we did the angle where they wrapped the bull rope around his neck and then I was supposed to take off in the pickup. And whenever they slapped the side of the pickup, I thought that was my cue to go, and it wasn't, and we nearly decapitated him. He was pretty hot at that one. Can't understand why.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, get over it, dude. One more. Island's Eye on Myths. You probably hear this all the time, but could I ask you about smacking Jim Cornette? Was it a receipt for something the famously mouthy manager did to you?
Well, I got 14 bashes where I beat him. Yeah, there was some animosity built up on that because his promos, if you listen back to his promos, he did not hold back. And to be like in my early 20s and wanted to do well, and I took some of those promos to heart. I mean, it's hard not to. I mean, it's all supposed to be a work, but sometimes you can go a little bit too far. But it worked, and we made a lot of money. So
did it look good on TV?
Absolutely. Everything always looked good on TV. Like whenever I hit him in the back of the head in Raleigh, it's a long way from the dressing room to the ring in Raleigh. So they sent me down there, but it took me forever to get through there because there were so many people to try and get through the crowd. So he'd already made one loop around the ring and I wasn't there. So he was starting on a second, maybe even a third. And I came out behind him and I whacked him in the head. Well, the people are like 3 foot away. I can't like just barely tap you. I mean, I hit him hard enough to where they're still talking about it.
And he probably struggled to talk for a couple of days after that one as well.
Yes. I suppose I dislocated his jaw on that one.
Oh, really? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, well, it sounds like he deserved it for some of the comments, at least.
It's like it just doesn't line up right. I can't chew, and it's just not right.
We will move on. This is something that a lot of other people have asked about, and damn, I'm sure you've been asked about this a million times. What was in the envelope?
To this day, I've got an envelope, and I've got what Dusty put into the envelope. To this day, I really don't know where the angle was going to go. I'd heard several different stories on it, several different ways that it could have gone. It's one of the best angles ever because it never happened, but almost 40 years later, we're still talking about it. So it was perfect. Um, I I'd asked Dusty, I guess this has been 20 years ago, just about, whenever I started doing the interviews and promos and things like that, you get asked like, "What's in the envelope?" And I was just like, "What do I tell them?" And Dusty told me, he says, "Never tell them." He says, "Never let them know." He says, "Because once you tell them, then they won't ask again." He said, "Just don't tell them."
Oh, okay. Right, I've got some theories, or I did a little digging, and to see if
Okay.
any. I mean, you can say nothing if you like, but
Okay.
apparently it was photos of Dusty in some sort of compromising situation. There was ones like with being another woman, or I don't know,
Right.
dressing up in women's clothes or something. There was like various different ones, and apparently he actually had the photos shot as well.
See, I don't know. I had heard that they were supposed to be like a series of photos, like going down the hotel room corridor and then opening up the door. And then you open up the door and then there's clothes laying around and you can tell it's Dusty's jeans and a shirt and like women's clothes and then lingerie and then a tangle of feet and stuff in the at the mattress. I mean, that could have been one. Um, the one of the stories that I'd heard was, I guess because I'd been with Dusty like 8 months, like I built this whole portfolio on him. Like I delved into his deepest, darkest secrets for 8 months. So I had this whole itinerary on
Mm.
all the misdeeds that he'd done, from like kicking his dog to cheating on his wife to cheating on his taxes to, just card after card after card. So there's a lot of stuff you can get on a guy in 8 months.
Yeah. It also sounds like I mean, hopefully, he didn't take photos of him kicking a dog. That
No.
would have been terrible. Well, you said that you still got the envelope and there was something in it,
Yes.
but is that the bit you're keeping secret?
Yeah, I've got to keep that secret.
That's fine.
I've got the envelope and I've got everything that Dusty put into it, and it's in my china cabinet at my house.
Are you ever going to do like a big reveal one day, like at a special
I
anniversary or
might,
something?
I might, I might just sell it outright or something. I don't know. There's a lot of people out there that are into the market of like wrestling memorabilia, so I might sell it one day.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, you should sell it, but never ever tell people what's in it.
Right.
And then it's almost like oh, there was some famous singer who did an auction and told them what the meaning behind a song was. It was like "You're So Vain" or something like that. Carly Simon, and I think they
Oh,
did the
that
same
was
thing.
Mick Jagger. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
Mick Jagger was the one.
and Warren Beatty and James Taylor and a million other people it could have been.
Right.
As you said, it never got far enough for anyone to find out what was in the envelope. I've heard two separate stories of why. So why did it go nowhere, and why did you leave JCP quite soon after?
Um, my ex-husband Sam was working for WWF, and on my days off, I would go and fly to see Sam. So I would be in the audience sometimes at WWF shows, or I'd be seen at WWF events. And Crockett thought it was a conflict of interest for one of their talent to be at a show, and they they really didn't like Sam and I to be married because they wanted my character to be like a Marilyn Monroe, single and available and loves all the guys and the whole thing. And um, back, I didn't realize it then. I realize it now, how seriously people take wrestling and how everything has to lead into the story. So for me to be seen with Sam, it did hurt what I did with Crockett.
Mm.
So to this day, I mean, I see couples that are married and traveling, and the whole thing is just like, y'all have no idea what we went through back in the day, just to be seen with each other, just to spend time with each other. Um, I can kind of see where Crockett would be disappointed with me going up there because they would want me to be exclusive for them. And it was just a different time.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it couldn't have been any shock to them because Sam went, I looked this up, about May of 1987, and you were doing the
Right.
envelope angle in 88. So it couldn't
Right.
have been any shock that they were bringing you in, and he'd long been with the WWF. So I don't know why it got up their back so much after the fact.
It's boys are going to be boys and jealousy and the whole thing. And if Crockett couldn't have me 100%, then they didn't want me at all.
No. I've got well. There's two more questions. We may have to end it there afterwards, but and it's I don't want to end it on a downer, but it might be a downer question. But firstly, WWF. You went there briefly, and were you ever on screen in the WWF? Or were you just
No.
purely just doing the training?
I never even really trained with them. I am the only one in my whole family that's been involved with wrestling that has never made a WWF or WWE check. My husband, my ex-husband, my father-in-law, my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my daughter, her husband, trying to think, my dad, all made WWF checks. I've never made a WWF check. I trained with Nelson Royal during the summer with Rockin' Robin, and we trained, did really well. Well, we were at a show, and I can't remember where we were at, but Lalani Kai was there, and Lalani had heard that I'd been working out, so she was like, "Hey," she told Sam, "Hey, have your wife put on some gear, and I'll go work out with her." Well, I had no idea that that was like the WWF, like my audition. So I just went in there and just kind of messed around with Lalani because I never really worked with her. I never like had tryout or the whole thing, or didn't even really think anyone was watching. Well, then Robin came down after I did and worked out. Well, they chose Robin, which was great because Robin had amazing matches with Sherry Martel. She was a WWF Women's Champion. It all worked out. So I'm kind of glad because I'm glad I didn't have to take bumps because now I'm not all stove up and I don't hurt so bad. And with me being the size that I am, it wouldn't have looked right for me to put over like Misty Blue or the smaller girls. China came on about 5 to 6 years after I did. So she was like the next step, and things had progressed a lot more since then. So I'm glad I didn't wrestle. I'm glad that I did the ballet and I did really, really well with that.
Yeah. Did anyone say, "Hey, we've actually got room for two lady wrestlers instead of just Rockin' Robin"? And there was
Mhm.
no thought of bringing you in as well.
I had heard at one point that they didn't like my look, that I was too regional, that I would have not been like a worldwide commodity, and instead I was like more like a southern, southeast type um, character.
Hmm.
But I had ways. I mean, I went from Andrea to Baby Doll to like the glamour girl type thing. So I can change my look whatever they wanted. They just didn't want me. So it's fine.
Yeah. I
Water under the bridge. I'm good.
their loss. Their loss. Do you know? I will ask the question that is on a bit of a downer, but you've brought up Dark Side of the Ring. You probably know where I'm going to go with this because we've been talking about Robin,
Okay.
and you were married to Sam. I know
Right.
Sam Houston. You really loved his dad. Obviously, Rockin' Robin and Jake have different opinions of Grizzly Smith. What do you make of Grizzly at the time?
At the time, it was you had kind of warning signals and like people had thrown stuff up. Whenever I first started dating Sam, Tully had asked me like, "How old are you?" And I was like, I was 23, and he says, "Oh, you're okay. You're too old." Didn't really think anything about it, like, oh, okay, that was kind of weird. And then I met Robin and her girlfriend and the whole thing. And um, Grizz was always really good to me. I tried to, because you had the feeling like something was weird. but I never saw it. I mean, it was just hidden so well. I mean, I was in that family. I married Sam in 86 and we divorced in 94. So from like 86 to 90, I was around that family a lot. I traveled with Grizz a lot when we worked with Mid-South. Um, to this day, I wish that I would have known so that I could have helped Robin because I had absolutely no clue.
Mm.
None. He just covered it up so well. I wish I could have helped her.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, she was your sister-in-law. I don't know how close you were to Robin at that time, but I also suspect, especially in that day and age, it's not the kind of thing you sort of talk about as much as maybe you would today.
It was, if anything was off, I mean, I was there so much that I would have thought I would have picked up on it. Sam loved his dad beyond. I mean, his dad was his superhero. And his dad, the one thing that I thought was really weird was um, Grizz had three sons. He had Richard, Jake, and Sam. But whenever he wrote Sam, he would put my number one son. And I asked him about that, like, why are you putting number one when you're like number three? There's like other brothers. How do they fit in? And he was just like, well, that's just the relationship I've got with my dad. I know that I'm number one, which when you've got all those kids, you don't, to me, it was kind of weird that why would you single out one kid out of all of them?
Yeah, that is a slightly. I won't ask anymore. I'll tell you what. We've got maybe 2 minutes left, so I'll do the final game very, very quickly. It might have to just be one word, but I'm just going to give you a name of somebody you work with, and you just give me a few words on them. You, for the most part, going to like them all. I'm pretty sure. We've already talked about Ole Anderson, so we'll skip straight ahead and Missy Hyatt.
Oh, Missy is like baby doll 2.0. She definitely took what I did and made it even more. I mean, she's got the face, she's got the body, lots of heat there in Texas. Someone even stole her dog. She had so much heat. Just she's a lot smarter than y'all would think that she is. She's very, very bright girl.
My man, Dutch Mantel.
Story for everything. I mean, just I knew Dutch back, oh my gosh, I was probably like 10, 11 years old. Excellent worker, good friend, just all around good guy.
Yeah, absolutely. The Warlord. I don't know how many people realise that you actually managed the Warlord briefly.
I was his first manager.
Yeah.
I was his first manager.
He still had hair.
He's fellow Minnesotan because my mom's from Minnesota. Just how do you say it, like a behemoth? I mean, literally, like his thighs are like this. Just one of the biggest guys that I ever knew. And then the funniest part was when he drove a little Fiero. If you ever know like little sport cars, he had like a little red Fiero. And to see this big man come out of a little red Fiero was hilarious.
David Crockett.
Oh my gosh. Everybody shits on him for being an announcer, but he's like one of the best announcers ever.
Look at him, look at him, look at him, look at him.
It's hard not to get enthusiastic when your announcer is so enthusiastic. So yeah, what was it when Magnum kissed me and like she likes it. I still can hear
that. We said this person as well. We'll move on. J.J. Dillon.
Never ages. I want whatever he's drinking because when he was like in his 30s, he looks the same as what he does now in his 70s.
Well, he looks old in his 30s.
Guys, right? Whenever they have the big Texan steakhouse in Amarillo where you can eat the 76-ounce steak, and if you can finish it, then your meal is free. He did that 3 times. He can no longer participate in the contest.
Maybe that's where he's found the fountain of youth.
That's it.
Rick Rude.
Oh my gosh. I really didn't travel with him that much. Just the amount of heat that he got with Jake and working with Jake's wife. Not only did he have heat with the fans, he had heat with Jake.
Do you know Jake's back with Cheryl after all these years?
Yes. I think it's amazing. I saw them in Rome, Georgia a couple of months ago, and they just look so happy. I'm so happy for them.
Yeah.
It's like they're getting the better versions of themselves. It's like what they hoped for when they were in their 20s and 30s, they're getting now. And I think they appreciate it.
Yeah. Dark journey.
Oh my gosh. Eclectic. Just so smart, so funny. Just to this day, one of my really, really good friends. I'm glad we have the internet because we were able to hook up and start talking with each other. Did a lot of road trips in Mid-South. I thought I ate weird stuff. She likes eating weird stuff like just weird stuff.
I'll give you a few more and then I will thank you for your time. Percy Pringle III.
Gosh. Good guy. Just really, I mean, started out in Texas, actually was a funeral director. It's hard to take Undertaker and make him more, but he actually like took Undertaker and made him more.
Was he?
And that's when you've got talent, is when you can take someone that's so good like Undertaker and take them to that next step.
Yeah. Was he managing while you were managing in Dallas, or did you not quite
No,
cross over?
he came in right after I did. He was about 8 months after me.
Larry Zbyszko, who you managed as well, who we've not talked about.
Super guy. One of the guys that we didn't have the greatest chemistry in the ring, but outside the ring, just a really super, super good guy. Just really, he was dating Kathy Gagne whenever I first met him. So I had all the drama with that. Had the two little boys and just, I know Larry better outside the ring than what I do in.
Isn't it funny that Larry was allowed to be married to someone in a different wrestling promotion and
right.
You weren't? How weird's that?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But Kathy wasn't on screen and I was on screen.
No, fair enough then. Lex Luger.
Back in the day, I did not like him because he actually was a narcissist. Like he was just so stuck on himself. Now he's like one of the nicest guys, and I love to see him at the shows.
Mm-hmm. Nikita Koloff.
Nikita. Live the gimmick. I mean, anyone that will change their name and go that far so that people would believe in what you were doing, you don't get much better than that.
Did he continue the accent backstage with you?
Oh yeah, he never was out of character, ever. Yeah, therefore I think probably 5 or 6 years you never saw Scott. It was Nikita.
And how could we not end on anyone else but Ric Flair? So just a funny Ric Flair story to finish the interview off on.
Oh my gosh. We were in Florida and we were all at the bar and I could see that it was one of those times where you just have to like tap out. I'm done. I'd gone up to my room and about an hour later, someone's knocking on that door. Doll, come out and play. Doll, come on. And so I look out the peephole and it's Flair and you can tell like it's blurred, but from the chest up, you can see like he's not wearing any clothes. He's out in the hallway naked. So I'm like, there ain't no way I'm opening up this door. So it's like really quiet. So you would never even know that I was in the room. And I used to would check in, like if I knew that I was going to maybe have problems that night, I would check in under Jamie Bond. It was kind of like my James Bond cohort. So they couldn't find me. Well, that night they found me. So I was just trying to be real quiet. Like, well, they don't know I'm in my room. They don't know where I'm at. So I'm just be quiet. Well, then it got quiet all of a sudden. Well, then some more running up and down the hall. And then what had happened was Buddy Landell was on the same floor and he saw Flair running up and down naked. So then he comes out of his room with his robe on right as the police, the door for the elevator opens. And there's 4 policemen looking for a blonde man running up and down the hallways of the Holiday Inn. Well, there's Landell. Landell had not been out of his room for a minute. And here he opens up his door right as the elevator doors open up. So Landell got carted off. Flair never was part of it. And Mandela got all the heat for being naked in the hallway.
What is it? When you got into the wrestling business, did you realize how many of the male wrestlers you would see naked in your career?
I I never really saw that many because I walk through the dressing rooms like this. I get my chair and I point it towards the wall. I just no, that's scares me.
It would scare me as well. Thanks. Right, I will. On that note, I'm going to shut down this interview. Thank you so much for joining me. Before I cut it off, though, have you got anything you want to get out there? Plugs, social media, anything you want to promote?
I can be found on either Twitter or Facebook. I'm active in both those. You can just plug my first name, Nicola, Nickla. Very political, a lot of wrestling, a lot of stray dogs. I try and help a lot of the animals. Be sure and watch my daughter, Samantha Starr, on NWA and NWA Power. I believe I've been invited for the Crockett Cup coming up in June, so I'll be making another NWA appearance. I've got ASW with Gary Dameron here tonight in Madison, West Virginia. I've got Beckley, West Virginia coming up. I've got Laurinburg, North Carolina for a DARE. It's a charity event for them. I've got the Gathering in August with D'Amato Promotions. Always look forward to the first week of August in Charlotte. I've got Worcester, Rhode Island, the New England Fan Fest in July. I have, and of course, WrestleCade ends up the end of the year in November for the Winston-Salem Convention Center for Tracy Myers is the coup de grace at the end of the year. So a lot of still busy, still
you need a website
busy.
with like a tour page for all these things where you're going to appear in. Listen,
no, my husband doesn't like me doing that many appearances, so I kind of have to.
oh, okay, right.
He sees enough of it on the calendar.
All right, okay. The not wink, not happening. But anyway, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for joining me, everybody. We'll catch you again next time I do an interview, which is very, very sporadic. No, it's every week. But thank you very much, baby doll.
You bet. Thank you.